It has been a long road getting here. It has been many a Ring movie and a Grudge movie. But we are finally here. We are finally at SADAKO versus KAYAKO. Who will win in this epic showdown of Japanese ghost stories? And more importantly, who will win the Japanophile Favorite Series Award? Our final Ring Award. Because this was bound to happen. No, actually it had to happen. This crossover needed to exist, and I for one was the most excited to see it. Every single Grudge movie, every single Ring movie, it has all led to this point. And was it worth it? Fuck no! SADAKO vs. KAYAKO is one of the most underwhelming movies that I have ever been hyped to see. It's not horrible, or even particularly bad, but it wastes so much potential. So much potential for something that will never happen again that it might as well be. The parallel was going to be inevitable, but this is Japan's Freddy vs. Jason, and that comparison goes in more ways than one. Ju-on has a more consistent quality in its earlier entries, but it stays comfortably within the bounds of the horror genre and its tropes. Ring has one or two fantastic entries that arguably step outside the bounds of conventional horror, and then a series of meh to shit sequels. And all four franchises resulted in two crossover films that were pretty poorly received. So let's dig into this movie. This is everything that is wrong with SADAKO vs. KAYAKO. The movie begins with a tongue-in-cheek tone, but it loses it by the halfway point. All too quickly, the movie starts taking itself way too seriously for a film that is supposed to set up two Japanese ghosts fighting each other. And that might have been one of the movie's greatest mistakes. SADAKO vs. KAYAKO is actually a reboot of both franchises at the same time, one that feels like you're flipping channels back and forth between two different reboots. Both plots are completely separate until the very end. One plot revolves around two high school girls that fall under Sadako's curse. The other plot revolves around a new neighbor to the Psyche house, who is also a high school girl. And with those two halves starring two similarly bland characters, it makes me wonder why they didn't just make them the same character. Of course, it would be a lot harder to write and make convincing, but oh, that is exactly why it's written like this. Because it's easier. These separate plots are just an easy way out. Now, I don't have too many problems with the Ju-on parts of this movie. There are a lot of homages and scenes relating to the Psyche house. However, that house is very incidental to the overall plot, which is why I will probably be complaining about Ring elements for most of this movie. The parts that are Ju-on are recreated faithfully. Problem is that there's not enough, and the stuff that is there isn't related to the actual plot. In contrast, there's very little in the way of direct Ring references. The curse has been completely revamped to fit the movie's pacing, which is fine. I'm not complaining about that. Making the curse last 2 days and getting rid of the copying tape transfer is fine, especially with that latter point because they do set it up as a way out, only to find out that in the SADAKO vs. KAYAKO universe, copying the tape doesn't do anything. It's a nice little trick on the audience, and if there was more of that, then maybe I'd be treating this movie better. But it goes a little too far in some areas. Sadako is not a vengeful psychic. She might be a mimetic monster. Her backstory is completely omitted. Even KAYAKO gets a line about her husband killing her, but the only thing that comes close for Sadako is a line about her being born from the meme of a cursed VHS tape. Her death in a well, and the whole reason why it's called Ring, is gone. And I think it's only gone because they wanted to use a well in the third act, which I guess would have a lot less impact if you saw Sadako bursting out of that well previously. There's a new curse tape, and I can tell you right now, it is my least favorite. I like the fact that it is hidden for so long, but when you finally see it, it's very underwhelming, like the rest of the movie, actually. This would have been the perfect chances for some Ring homages, maybe even a chance to take some stuff from Kanzenban, but instead they chose this thing where Sadako just comes out from a doorway. One of the most iconic visuals in Ring is just not in this movie. The Ring plot also revolves around one of the girls going to an exorcist, which is just so un-Ring-like. This exorcist setting is completely against the modernized ghost story that Ring is. But I think the most damaging part of all is a scene that references Ju-on, but uses Sadako as the ghost, which I'm not against. In a film that is supposed to be a fan letter to both franchises, I'm not against having a scene that is ripped from The Grudge, but uses Sadako. But this doesn't feel like Ring, and they never do any Ring references with KAYAKO or Sadako. Little details like the picture manipulation that has been present in all Ring entries is just completely absent. And now I need to mention Keizo and his blind assistant. These characters come in the third act of both plots, which is a weird thing to say. These characters enter into the movie to combine both plots into one story. But even though they are coming in halfway through the movie, they are already coming in too late to really make a difference and make it feel like these two halves have been leading to a cohesive whole. Ignoring that, what are these characters? They're treated like we should know who they are, but they're completely new to the film. Keizo is a supernatural investigator. It's never outright stated, but these two are the ones you want to call when you want to bust some Japanese ghosts. And in theory, I like these characters. It adds to the versus element when you have two characters that are actively trying to get these ghosts to battle it out. Because Keizo's plan is to have Sadako and Kayako cancel each other out, removing both curses from both girls. But when it plays out, it just feels like a couple of fanfic characters added into the movie. Like those cringy self-insert pages that you would see on SCP. Almost like the director wanted to make a movie about these two, but could only get the funding with big names like Sadako and Kayako signed onto it. And while Keizo might speed up the movie's pace to its showdown, he's just an asshole. We don't know enough about these two characters to really care. The showdown itself delivers on its promise, but only for about a minute before going off the rails, and I think part of the problem is that Sadako and Kayako are too similar. They give Sadako more to do with her hair, but that was also something that Kayako did in her movies. Taking a cue from a lot of Japanese fan art, you really need to play up the differences between these two. Make Sadako more blue, Kayako more red, give Sadako more things to do with technology since that seems to be the route that you're going for. Have Kayako pull out some of her classic grudge moves. They kinda do this, but not enough and not for long. And this fight scene is a scene that you absolutely have to watch in the dark, because if you don't, you won't be able to see shit for most of it. In the end, the climactic battle comes down to Sadako and Kayako fusing into Sayako and getting sealed into a well, only to break out a minute later. And then it just ends. I guess everyone died or something, and the cursed tape now has Sayako on it, but it really feels like nothing was accomplished and nothing changed. What should have been a really fun crossover movie just ends on a whimper, and causes both franchises to end on a whimper, as we have not had a Japanese grudge or Ring since Kayako and Sadako. This ending is disappointing to everyone. So instead of having an ending that is disappointing to everyone, I thought that I might make an ending that at least appeases me. That's right, you are about to get an official Japanophile re-edit of the Sadako vs. Kayako showdown. Now there are a few goals that I had in mind for this. Number one was to cut down on Keizo and his assistant, because to the actual fight itself, they contribute very little. Number two was to turn up the brightness so that you could actually see what the fuck was going on. And number three was to have an actual goddamn winner. And so what I am about to play is a clip just over 3 minutes, which is longer than what I would normally play on this channel. However, this is essentially the final 14 minutes of Sadako vs. Kayako, boiled down into just the 3 minutes where they actually fight. With all that in mind, please enjoy. So, like many versus films before it, this film ends in a draw between its two combatants. But who wins the Japanophile Favorite Series Award? Which one of these iconic series would a small YouTube channel bestow as its favorite? It's Ju-on. I like Ju-on better. I'm sorry, I had to say it. I just generally like how schlocky Ju-on can be in comparison to Ring. And that wraps up October. This has been probably my most requested video, and not really requested, more like when I finished my series on Ju-on, people assumed that I had forgotten this movie. And when I finished one of my videos on Ring, somebody had also assumed that I had forgotten this movie, but I was saving this movie for today. Since I started the Ju-on videos last year, it was always the goal to save SADAKO and KAYAKO for Halloween. And was it worth it? Hopefully this video is going to turn out to be alright, and I'll be able to get it done in time for Halloween. I suppose if you're listening to this, you already know how that story ends. Anyways, this is the part of the Halloween video where I recommend better Halloween movies to watch than SADAKO versus KAYAKO. As far as Ring movies go, the original Ringu and Ring Zero are worth checking out. And you can look at my video on Grudge movies to figure out which ones you want to watch there. But if you're in the mood for something much older, I'd recommend watching Jigoku, a movie that I watched this October, which is a 1960s movie about Japanese hell, and faithfully recreates the Buddhist depiction of hell. I also watched Martin this October, which is not a Japanese horror movie, but is fantastic regardless. And of course, if you have nothing else to watch, you can always watch Lust of the Dead, because this is the first year where I haven't had to watch one of those movies. So that's it from me. I'll probably be taking a break for at least a little while. Making videos this consistently has put a kind of time constraint on doing anything else for me. So until next time, happy Halloween.